You think modern sports are wild? 33 weird sports from the past are worse. These truly weird sports from the past make today's games look boring. People once played brutal sports from the past with almost zero safety rules. Whole villages turned into chaos just to keep one weird game going. Behind every bizarre rule is a story of pride, money, or status. Fox tossing. Aristocrats competing by catapulting live foxes. At some royal parties, foxes literally rained from the sky. In 17th and 18th century Saxony, nobles played fox tossing. Players stretched a cloth between them and waited for animals. When a fox sprinted across, they yanked upward, launching it. Augustus II, the Strong in Dresden, tossed hundreds one night. The terrified animals sometimes clawed back, injuring guests in silk. Courtiers treated it like a flirtatious game for couples. Spectators laughed at the chaos, ignoring the very obvious cruelty. As attitudes toward animals shifted, fox tossing disappeared from Europe. Ferret legging, men enduring angry ferrets inside their trousers. Imagine volunteering to trap 2 ferrets inside your pants. That's ferret legging, a bizarre endurance stunt from Yorkshire, England. Coal miners reportedly revived it in the 1970s for laughs. Competitors tied their trouser legs shut and slipped ferrets in. They weren't allowed underwear, sedation, or blunting the animal's teeth. Legendary competitor Reg Meller once lasted 5 painful hours straight. Crowds watched men grimace, dance, and scream through the ordeal. Fans insisted the ferrets were fine afterward. Critics strongly disagreed. Today it survives as a strange punchline about British toughness. Poodle clipping races at the 1900 Paris Olympics. Among the strangest Paris 1900 stories is Olympic poodle grooming. Reports describe a clipping contest held beside the exposition grounds. Around 128 groomers supposedly raced to trim as many poodles as possible. A French woman named Avril Lafoule allegedly won by clipping 17 dogs. Spectators watched hair fly while judges simply counted finished animals, not style. The event fit the fairground atmosphere more than traditional Olympic sport. Historians still argue whether it was fully official or exaggerated afterward. Either way, it shows how loose early Olympic programs sometimes were. Today, Olympic dog grooming sounds more like sketch comedy than history. Live pigeon shooting. Olympic marksmen targeting actual flying birds. Only once did the Olympics deliberately leave a field covered in feathers. At Paris 1900, shooters competed in live pigeon events with prize money. Handlers released birds from traps, while marksmen fired until missing twice. Belgian shooter Leon de London reportedly won one main event that year. By the end, estimates say nearly 300 pigeons lay dead. Organizers pitched it as glamorous, calling the sport aristocratic and modern. Animal welfare campaigns soon condemned it, pushing for cleaner clay pigeons instead. The event quietly vanished, later scrubbed from the official Olympic record books. Modern shooters now talk about it like a dark historical ghost. Plunge for distance. Olympic divers floating motionless underwater. One Olympic diving event basically rewarded doing nothing for 60 seconds. In St. Louis, 1904, Americans competed in the plunge for distance. Each diver stepped from a platform, glided underwater, then simply waited. Officials measured how far their bodies drifted before surfacing, or time expired. Gold medalist William Dickey won with a long, slow underwater slide. Spectators expecting acrobatics instead watched motionless human logs drifting forward. Critics called it dull and unfair to lighter, more buoyant bodies. By the 1920s, the event disappeared from serious swimming programs. Today it survives mainly as a quirky footnote in Olympic history. Obstacle swimming race, weaving over and under moored boats. Now picture an Olympic swim race where the pool keeps attacking you. In Paris 1900, athletes swam a 200-meter obstacle course. The race took place in the River Seine, not a pool. Swimmers first climbed over a horizontal pole floating across their lane. Then they scrambled across boats before diving under another line of hulls. Australian swimmer Frederick Lane still managed to win gold that weekend. Spectators lined the riverbank, watching athletes fight current, obstacles, and exhaustion. Organizers never brought back the event, probably for sensible safety reasons. But photos of swimmers climbing boats still look wildly cinematic today. Olympic art contests awarding medals for painting and sculpture. For decades, you could win Olympic medals without sweating at all. From 1912 to 1948, the Games held official art competitions. Architects, painters, sculptors, writers, and composers submitted works inspired by sport. The founder, Pierre de Coubertin, wanted culture alongside track and field. One early gold medal in literature even went to his own poem. Entries ranged from stadium designs to symphonies celebrating muscular, heroic athletes. Judging was messy. Some artists were technically professionals, breaking amateur rules. Eventually, the IOC dropped art medals, replacing them with cultural exhibitions. But those forgotten medals still blur the line between sport and art. Shin kicking championships at England's Rough Cotswold Games. At the Cotswold Olympic Games, sports fans cheer for bruises. Shin kicking dates back centuries in rural England's strange festival traditions. Two competitors grab each other's shoulders and aimed vicious kicks downward. Historically, they wore heavy boots. Modern rules demand padding with straw. The goal is simple: topple your opponent onto the grass. Crowds count loud kicks while referees watch for dangerous, illegal blows. Winners rarely look glamorous. They're limping, laughing, and covered in dust. Despite its cartoonish name, competitors train and treat it surprisingly seriously. It's one part martial art, one part village comedy show. Goose-pulling contests with riders snatching birds overhead. Some old European festivals literally dangled a goose as the finish line. Versions appeared in Spain, the Netherlands, Germany, and colonial North America. Spectators treated it as proof of horsemanship and courage, despite cruelty. Local kings and nobles sometimes sponsored big-money goose-pulling tournaments. Over time, many communities switched to fake geese or symbolic prizes. Animal welfare laws eventually pushed most live bird versions into the past. Still, surviving festivals sparked fierce debates between tradition, spectacle, and ethics. Pistol dueling matches using wax bullets and safety gear. When real duels faded, some Europeans simply swapped bullets for wax. Early 1900s Paris saw organized pistol duels using wax projectiles and armor. Contestants wore heavy padding, masks, and breastplates to soften hits. They fired at each other from traditional dueling distances, sometimes drawing blood. Newspapers covered bouts like sporting events, listing scores and dramatic photos. Some clubs even staged tournaments with referees and standardized, safer rules. Spectators got the thrill of dueling without watching anyone actually die. Eventually, fencing and target shooting felt less controversial than mock gunfights. Wax dueling drifted into obscurity, remembered mostly through odd vintage photographs. Victorian pedestrianism, fans betting on multi-day walking races. Long before ultramarathons, Victorians packed arenas just to watch walking. Pedestrianism turned competitive long-distance walking into a gambling-fueled spectator sport. Star walkers like Edward Payson Weston circled tracks for 6 days. Promoters rented indoor halls, complete with marching bands and ticketed seats. Spectators bet on laps while exhausted competitors fought sleep and injury. Some athletes collapsed mid-race. Others claimed dramatic, sometimes dubious, mileage records. Newspapers loved the drama, printing daily updates like sports soap operas. Eventually, cycling and modern track races stole the spotlight from pedestrians. Today, those grueling walkathons feel halfway between sport and endurance circus. Endurance dance marathons during Great Depression nightclub craze. In the Great Depression, some couples literally danced for survival money. Dance marathons offered food, shelter, and prize cash to exhausted participants. Partners shuffled around ballroom floors for weeks, resting only in brief breaks. Promoters turned desperation into spectacle with bands, bleachers, and loud announcers. Crowds paid small fees to watch couples sway half asleep through songs. Rules allowed leaning on partners, but falling completely meant disqualification. Some cities banned marathons after reports of collapses, injuries, even deaths. For contestants, the line between competition and exploitation got very blurry. Their stories later inspired films exploring how far people will go. Victorian bicycle polo matches played on lawns and cricket fields. Victories didn't just ride bicycles, they tried playing polo on them. Bicycle polo emerged in late 19th century Ireland, then spread to Britain. Players balanced on fixed gear bikes, swinging mallets at a small ball. Games were staged on cricket pitches, lawns, and even exhibition grounds. The sport gained enough popularity to appear at the 1908 Olympics unofficially. Riders crashed frequently, sending spectators gasping and bicycle parts flying everywhere. Some traditional polo clubs sniffed, but others embraced the wheeled version. Over time, motor traffic and safety concerns pushed it into niche clubs. Modern bike polo leagues still trace their roots back to those experiments. Early motorized chariot races with cars circling dirt tracks. When cars arrived, some promoters immediately asked, why not chariot racing again? In the early 1900s, arenas staged motorized chariot races using automobiles. Drivers stood or sat in lightweight carts hitched behind roaring vehicles. They tore around tracks, wheels wobbling dangerously on tight, dusty corners. Promoters leaned hard into Roman imagery, complete with costumes and helmets. Newspapers loved photos of contraptions skidding sideways like mechanical war horses. Crashes were common, since safety standards lagged behind crowd expectations. As racing specialized, serious drivers moved into purpose-built cars instead. Motorized chariot shows faded, leaving behind sensational posters and grainy newsreels. Elephant polo matches played by colonial officers in India. Some colonial elites thought regular polo wasn't extravagant enough, so elephants. Elephant polo began in early 20th century India among British aristocrats. Teams rode trained elephants while mahouts guided them with voice commands. Players swung long bamboo mallets down from howdahs mounted on backs. Later tournaments in Nepal and Thailand drew tourists, celebrities, and sponsors. Events claimed to support conservation, even as welfare concerns kept growing. Footage shows elephants nudged, steered, and sometimes clearly stressed during matches. Public criticism eventually pushed many major tournaments to shut down. Today, elephant polo mostly survives in nostalgic stories and controversial photographs. Camel wrestling festivals pitting massive animals chest to chest. On Turkey's Aegean coast, winter means thousands gathering to watch wrestling camels. At festivals like Selçuk, male camels are led into sandy arenas. Handlers position them chest to chest, waiting for pushing matches to start. The animals shove, twist necks, and try forcing each other to retreat. Owners decorate camels with bright saddles, bells, and painted slogans. Crowds grill food, place bets, and dodge occasionally spooked giants. Organizers insist matches are stopped before serious harm, though debates continue. Animal rights activists regularly protest, arguing the stress alone is unacceptable. Still, for many locals, camel wrestling remains a proud seasonal tradition. Afghan Buzkashi horsemen wrestling over a heavy goat carcass. Afghanistan's fiercest sport uses no ball, just a headless goat. Buskashi pits horsemen against each other, fighting to drag the carcass home. Riders lean dangerously from saddles, trying to scoop it from scrums. The game can involve dozens of horses swirling in clouds of dust. Top players, called Chapandaz, earn reputations almost like rock stars. Crowds watch from hillsides, shouting and sprinting when horses charge near. In some regions, organizers now enforce stricter rules for safety and fairness. The sport has survived wars and regimes, symbolizing toughness and independence. For outsiders, it looks like chaos. For locals, it's identity. Japanese samurai archery exhibitions firing from galloping horses. Where others built stadiums, medieval Japan turned temples into archery racetracks. Yabusame displays samurai archers shooting at wooden targets from galloping horses. The tradition developed in the Kamakura period as martial training and ritual. Riders in hunting robes race down narrow tracks beside Shinto shrines. Each archer must control the horse, hands-free, while knocking arrows. They aim for 3 small targets, splintering boards when shots land perfectly. Feudal lords once used performances to pray for peace and good harvests. Today, places like Kamakura and Nikko still host Yabusame festivals annually. Tourists see it as a show, but archers treat it very seriously. Viking-style stone-lifting contests to prove strength for marriage. In Old Norse communities, your marriage prospects could hinge on one rock. Traditional stone lifting tested whether men were strong enough for hard work. In Icelandic fishing villages, harbor stones determined who qualified as full sharemen. Lifters tried hoisting named boulders like Brynjolfstak or Husafell up onto platforms. Succeeding meant status, failing meant teasing, and fewer options at gatherings. Some stones weighed as much as modern small cars, utterly immovable. Strong men today still travel to Iceland to attempt legendary lifts. They treat these rocks like living links to Viking-era challenges. For local families, each stone still carries stories about past lifters. Medieval jousting tournaments with armored knights charging at lances. To medieval spectators, jousts were part extreme sport, part live action theater. Armored knights on war horses thundered down tilts, aiming lances for shields. Tournaments across France and England drew nobles, merchants, and traveling craftsmen. Victors might win horses, armor, or even ransom from defeated rivals. Heralds announced names loudly, turning successful knights into regional celebrities. Crashes shattered lances and sometimes bones, despite shields and plate armor. Over time, rules tightened and specialized sporting armor replaced battlefield gear. Royal courts used elaborate tournaments to display wealth, alliances, and discipline. Modern reenactments echo the spectacle, minus the original political stakes. Ancient Roman chariot racing around the Circus Maximus track. If you wanted noise in ancient Rome, you visited the Circus Maximus. Chariot racing there drew crowds estimated in the hundreds of thousands. 4 main teams, or factions, raced color-coded chariots for glory. Drivers risked crashes at high speeds on tight, dangerous turns. Spectators gambled heavily, cheered favorite stables, and sometimes rioted over outcomes. Famous charioteers like Gaius Apuleius Diocles reportedly earned enormous fortunes. The races combined sport, celebrity culture, politics, and risky showmanship. Emperors used successful factions to boost popularity or calm restless crowds. Even today, movies borrow that thunderous, dangerous energy for big climaxes. Mesoamerican ball game, where losing teams risked deadly consequences. Centuries before soccer, Mesoamerican cities built stone courts for ritual ball games. Players used hips and torsos to keep a heavy rubber ball airborne. Hoops or markers along walls turned simple rallies into dramatic scores. At sites like Chichen Itza, carvings show decapitated players beside the court. Scholars debate whether losers, winners, or captives actually faced sacrifice afterward. Either way, the game clearly carried heavy religious and political meaning. Rulers could display power by hosting matches tied to major ceremonies. Echoes survive today in regional ball games and stylized cultural performances. For many descendants, it represents continuity with complex pre-Columbian civilizations. Ancient Greek pancration blurring lines between wrestling and street fighting. Among ancient Olympic events, pancration came closest to an anything-goes fight. Introduced in classical Greece, it combined boxing strikes with wrestling grappling. Competitors fought barehanded, barefoot, and mostly without time limits or rounds. Rules banned biting and eye gouging, but nearly everything else was allowed. Victories came through knockouts, submissions, or opponents simply collapsing from exhaustion. Legends describe champions like Arakion, who died while technically winning. Crowds admired skill, toughness, and the almost theatrical displays of dominance. Modern mixed martial arts often cite pancration as a distant ancestor. But ancient bouts probably felt rougher, with far fewer medical safeguards. Gleima Viking wrestling with grips on special leather belts. Not all Viking combat involved axes, some used sneaky hip throws. Gleima is a traditional Scandinavian wrestling style focused on standing grapples. Wrestlers wear leather belts and must keep constant contact while moving. The goal is to off-balance the opponent, throwing them cleanly down. Matches were historically tied to festivals and community gatherings in Iceland. Good Gleima fighters earned respect as disciplined, controlled, and trustworthy people. Techniques emphasize balance, footwork, and avoiding injury rather than brute slams. Modern clubs in Norway and Iceland still practice under codified sports rules. It's wrestling, but it looks almost like dancing around invisible obstacles. Cornish wrestling bouts, decided by dramatic throws, onto the grass. Down in Cornwall, traditional wrestling once drew crowds like football does today. Cornish wrestling features fighters in heavy jackets gripping for spectacular throws. Referees watch closely to judge whether both shoulders hit the ground. Victorian-era tournaments awarded belts, trophies, and sometimes surprisingly big cash prizes. Local champions became folk heroes, known for signature throws and techniques. Emigration spread the art to places like Australia and the United States. Today, Cornish wrestling survives through dedicated clubs and summer festival bouts. The jackets look old-fashioned, but the throws remain impressively athletic. Scottish caber toss, competitors flipping full tree trunks end over end. In Scottish Highland games, the most iconic event is basically lumberjacking. Caber tossers hoist massive tapered logs upright, balancing them in their hands. The goal isn't distance, but flipping the caber cleanly end over end. Judges imagine the caber as a clock, scoring based on landing angle. Competitors often wear kilts, adding even more drama to wobbly runs. Strong men from around the world travel to Scotland for major meets. The event likely developed from practical tasks of moving fallen timber. Training involves not just muscle, but timing and careful footwork. Watching a successful toss feels like seeing gravity briefly negotiated with. Highland stone putting contests predecessors to modern shot put. Before medal shots, Highland athletes tested strength by heaving heavy stones. Stone putting events vary by village, but the idea stays simple. Contestants throw from a marked box, lifting stones from their shoulders. Some stones have names and long local histories of record attempts. Techniques resemble modern shot put, but stones are often irregularly shaped. Heavy events at Highland Games keep stone putting alive beside cabers. Tourists try scaled-down versions and quickly learn how technical it is. Serious competitors train year-round, treating it much like Olympic throwing. Those grassy fields became laboratories for many modern strength sports later. Eton-wall game scrums for a ball against a brick wall. At England's Eton College, one famous sport barely moves the ball. The Eton wall game uses a long brick wall as battlefield. Two teams form a dense scrum, called a bully, against it. Players jostle, shove, and try to inch the ball forward. Scoring requires lifting the ball in a special zone called cax. Goals are incredibly rare. Some annual matches end scoreless for decades. Traditionally, collegians face oppidons on St. Andrew's Day each year. Famous alumni like Prince Harry have been photographed battling in the scrum. For outsiders, it looks completely baffling, but insiders cherish every bruise. Royal real tennis matches played in enclosed asymmetrical courts. Long before fluorescent tennis balls, European kings played in echoing indoor courts. Real tennis, or court tennis, uses sloping roofs and odd angles. Courts are asymmetrical, with galleries, openings, and walls all in play. Players hit heavier balls with wooden rackets, aiming for tiny targets. French and English monarchs wagered heavily, sometimes ignoring politics for sets. The game's complex scoring later inspired parts of modern lawn tennis. Today, only a few dozen courts survive, across Britain, France, Australia. Dedicated players treat each quirky court like a historic puzzle to solve. Watching a rally feels like seeing squash, tennis, and geometry combined. French jeu de paume handball evolving into elite court tennis. Jeu de paume began simply, with players hitting balls using bare hands. Over time, French nobles moved indoors and adopted gloves, then rackets. Courts developed high walls, sloping roofs, and complicated scoring conventions. The sport became fashionable in Paris, inspiring paintings and political cartoons. The tennis court oath, a revolutionary pledge, used a palm court. As lawn tennis rose, jeu de paume gradually rebranded as real tennis. Rules shifted, but the core idea of angled indoor play remained. Today, only small communities preserve the older French terminology and culture. It's a reminder that modern tennis grew from much stranger beginnings. Edwardian skating gymkhanas, mixing costumes with whirling ice races. Early 20th century ice rinks sometimes felt more like fancy dress racetracks. Skating gymkhanas combined obstacle courses, relay races, and elaborate themed costumes. Participants weaved around cones, leapt small barriers, and dodged swinging decorations. Prizes went for speed, style, and sometimes best interpretation of a theme. Newspapers printed photos of Edwardians in capes, uniforms, and animal outfits. The events blurred lines between sport, performance, and winter social life. Some gymkhanas added musical chairs on skates, raising both laughs and bruises. As organized figure skating professionalized, the playful gymkhana format faded. Old posters still capture that brief moment when ice felt like carnival. Octopus wrestling contests off the 1960s Pacific Northwest coast. Few sports feature prize photos of divers hugging giant octopuses underwater. In the 1950s and 1960s, Puget Sound hosted octopus wrestling contests. Teams of divers searched shallows near Tacoma for hiding giant Pacific octopuses. Once grabbed, the animals were wrestled loose and hauled to shore. The World Octopus Wrestling Championships in 1963 reportedly drew thousands of spectators. Weight of captured octopuses decided winners, with trophies for biggest catches. Organizers sometimes staged animals in advance when natural numbers ran low. Eventually, concerns about conservation and cruelty ended the high-profile tournaments. Today, the idea sounds like satire, but vintage photos confirm everything. Early aerial balloon races treated as daring endurance sports. When aviation was new, daring felt slower and much more buoyant. Gas balloon races in Europe sent pilots drifting across countries for trophies. Events like the Gordon Bennett Cup measured distance traveled before landing. Crews navigated by maps, barometers, and watching winds move across clouds. Sometimes balloons crossed borders unexpectedly, forcing awkward meetings with foreign authorities. Weather changes could turn peaceful flights into storms, hail, or dangerous descents. Newspapers tracked balloon positions like race cars, reporting surprise landings days later. Eventually, powered aircraft took over, leaving competitive ballooning to niche enthusiasts. Still, modern balloon festivals echo those early contests of nerve and navigation.